Hello YouTube and fellow tankers, and welcome to King's Court. I'm Shrine King, and this is a review slash guide of the Tier 6 American Medium Jumbo. There's a bunch of letters that also stand for the Jumbo, but for all intents and purposes, we're talking about the Jumbo. When looking at the line, you'll see that there are two particular tanks that it splits out to, which is the E8 and the E2. The E2 is the Jumbo. The E8 is also known as the EZ8. So, for those who are new, welcome. In the guide reviews that I do, it is aimed towards pros, cons, kind of identifying key factors to the tank. Also, I'm going to cover how to best play the tank and what to do in situations that you're not really in a, well, let's say just not in a good situation, such as maybe bad matchups to a particular tank, bad scenarios with the tank, so on and so forth. So, to get kick started off right here, you're going to see this is what the Jumbo looks like. It looks just like everyone kind of knows as the M4, right? So the M4 is much more round and designed in the front, but the EZ8 and the M4 and the Jumbo, they all look pretty much the same. You'll see here I'm kind of pointing out weak spots on this tank. So the little gun port in the front there, that's a weak spot. There is the little viewports and cupolas. Those are also weak points on the tank. And also, if you saw where I was pointing at the very bottom there, the lower glacis, where there is no juts, there's just the plating. And it's kind of round. If you aim close to the bottom of it, that's actually the weakest spot you'll see. So, and here you'll notice I'm looking at the different armaments and stuff like that. So, one of the recommendations that I do have is that if you play this tank, that you're actually going to want to keep the first turret. The first turret is heavily armored for a medium, while the second turret is not. Now, the second turret does have like very high view range though, and that's what kind of makes part of the difference there. If you're trying to be, I want to say kind of like a scout almost in a way, but not a scout, then you would use the other turret. And that's just to be able to see farther. It doesn't make it to where your radio range extends or anything like that. So here you'll see I'm going over the line, and I'm showing where it breaks off. So you see that you get the M4, and then you have the option of the EZ8 or the Jumbo, and there's the EZ8. So you'll notice right away on the EZ8 the armor is not anywhere near the same. So you're looking at 63 millimeter on the hull and the turret, but you'll notice it does get a really nice gun. On the Jumbo, if you were to go to the next turret, you can get the really nice gun, but honestly the gun that you have even on the first turret is still really nice, and the difference there is instead of being 63 millimeters of armor, you'll actually have 152, and that's base armor on the turret. So then it actually comes out to well over 200, so it makes it to where most tanks can't pen you. So let's go into pros, right? Obviously, one of the pros that you're probably catching on to here is that it has a lot of armor. For a medium, it is kind of scary how much armor it has at the tier. It is capable of basically performing like a heavy. Now that makes it kind of crazy because people don't expect that. Now, at the same time, if you compare to it a heavy, it actually has really nice mobility, meaning it's pretty fast. When it goes against medium, so you'll see here it took me a little bit, and I'm up to 34. That's the max speed. Now, most mediums, they're going to get like 40, 45, so it's not as fast as other mediums. But you'll note, like as I mentioned, comparing to a heavy, because of how much armor it actually has, it's actually able to get up to speed pretty quick. It's pretty scary. It has awesome depression. Now, it also has a decent radio for the tier. All right, I want to emphasize on that a little bit. So I do know that if you get into like a tier 8 match, the radio is kind of short in comparison. But to tier 6, tier 7, tier 5, tier 4, it's got great radio. So what are some of the cons? Well, one, if you're using this turret that I mentioned, your view range is actually very low. Now, that said, by using this turret, you're able to get in very close without really having to worry too much about that view range, because you will still spot. So you'll see here I'm actually still spotting. Other cons is that the armor on it is not all the way around. So some heavies actually have the benefit where the armor is actually all the way around the tank. In this case, it's not. And then the last part I would say is that the gun is not necessarily entirely accurate. I personally would wish it was a little more accurate. So here you'll see I'm just bouncing shots. And to a pro though, right, like the damage penetration of the gun is actually really good, and the flight time for the shell is also really good. The reload's really good. So those are all the kind of pros and cons to the tank. Now, a few things that I would list off as potential cons is the factor of the weaknesses on it. So like you do have the hull where you actually have a gun port that people can aim at. That is the only other con that I would list. I don't really consider it as a full con. It's just something to note. Now, that said, how to best play the tank. So you see the way that I'm kind of playing is I'm playing around the hills. That is exactly what you want to do. This thing is a hill fighter. It's really good at it. If you get any kind of elevation that makes your armor angle a little up, and you can still hide the lower plating of it, it's awesome. Like you have 110, I think, millimeter armor, which then goes up to like 150, 160 based on the angling on it. And if you actually increase the angling, all that does is make it even thicker, basically. On top of that, it also increases the chance of deflection. So you'll see here this OI actually is not using a very good gun. So I'm actually going to be able to bounce him all day long. And you'll see he's even trying to use gold on me, which is not going to matter because of the armor on this tank. So in certain cases, you can definitely bully, but what I would recommend is play it kind of like a medium range to frontliner. What I mean by that is don't go rushing into your death. Kind of take it a little slow. Allow yourself to support your team and be there to take shots from tanks that you know you can take shots from. Now, when I say that, what I mean is most tier 6s you can take a shot from. If you see that they're running high explosives, back off. Don't overexpose yourself. Don't think, hey, just because you have all this armor, don't get too cocky and confident and be like, I'm just gonna run out there because I'm Jumbo. But no, like you don't want to do that. Take your time. You know, be a little patient. In this case, like this battle, you'll see is not going very good for me. We're 7 and 12, so the chances of winning is pretty slim. And that's one of the things here is I would also note as a con is this thing cannot rotate hull very quickly. So what ends up happening is if there are a lot of targets and they're swarming you, you're not probably going to be able to keep up with them. And you will get swarmed, and that'll probably be the end of it. Now, what to do in bad matchups? Well, honestly, in any bad matchup with this tank, besides the ones that are high explosives, like the Japanese vehicles, you can actually use the hills basically to your advantage. And what I would recommend is rather than getting at an angle or coming up on the hill to where you actually expose your hull, only expose your turret. That turret armor, like I said, is ridiculous. Now, that said, there are particular tanks I would watch out for. And oh, by the way, you'll see here, there's another tip. You are pretty heavy, so when you see those lights and stuff like that and they're running around, if you can ram them, do it. It'll most likely kill them. So, particular takes that I would definitely watch out for is like the Sturvs. Alright, they have really high penetration, very high accuracy. They can actually probably nail you through your turret, no problem. Anything else that would be starting to sling, most likely the premium ammo at tier 8 would actually get up to like 240 to 250 penetration. That's where you actually would need to worry a little bit. Because with 240, 250 penetration, they most likely can actually pen through your turret. So it holds up at 6 and 7, but at 8 it does become a problem. And I think there are a few 7s out there now that actually have penetration capable. For example, I'm looking at the SU-101 M1 in my mind here, and I believe that its premium ammo can get to 258. So that would be like one that you want to kind of watch out for. Other than that, I mean, honestly, most of them, like I said, you can kind of bully them a little bit. Try to keep the lower plating of your hull not exposed. Most hills will allow you to do that. Definitely use the hills to your advantage. If you are going to be out in the open, stay back. Use your radio range only. And then rely on your team for the view. Like I said, you have a good gun where you can just keep steady damage out, so do that. Alright, so that's pretty much it for this review. Again, I hope this stuff is really helpful to y'all. Please feel free to like, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you what your experience is with the Jumbo.